What were some of my advantages? I was disciplined, very disciplined. I was tenacious. There's some things that the military put in you that prepare you for all walks of life, and that discipline being that main one. Had the ability to be flexible, the ability to be able to work with anybody under any situation. Being a leader, confidence. Yeah, those were some of the well-rounded things that the military had given me that I felt was a direct advantage when I exited my military service.
I found that the transition from military service after 20 years to civilian service was really hard. This is where I want to share some thoughts and experience that a lot of folks, they're so hyped up on what the possibilities are. Sometimes they may not be focusing on or realizing that we have to dig deep. We have to go inside ourselves. We have to depend on the things that we've done and experienced in order to be able to face the challenge of that transition. It's not a joke. It's very hard. There are a lot of things that will be besetting for us. We'll be told no. We'll be rejected. We'll be offered less than what we thought we might be in the position that we had had. We might be offered less than what we might have had or we might have expected. So my thought during the transition, or describing the transition, is that it is very, very difficult. The things that I would encourage folks that are transitioning to gain and to dig deep in is that sense of self-confidence. What got you to where you are today? How can that help you for tomorrow? That's going to be critical. Because as people tell you no, or people reject your resume, that's just leading to another door that for an opportunity that you just may not see yet. People are going to tell you no. Folks on an interview are going to ask you questions that you may not know the answer to. That's all right. It's a learning process. So the transition really is hard. It's really eye-opening. It's humbling. But that's all right. I wanted to share today and encourage folks today that even with people telling you no, even with people rejecting you, that's all right. The things that you can do during the transition is to learn, gain the perspective, gain the experience, and use it just like you've done through all these number of years in military service to be able to serve and be a leader for tomorrow.
What were some of the challenges? The challenges include the sense of loss and the responsibility to reorganize your entire life. You're literally uprooting yourself from where you live and how you live and what you've been doing and what you've been dedicated to. And you have to basically do it all alone, which is contrary to what you've been trained and lived in the military. The brotherhood of teamwork is gone. You're on your own now. You have to lead yourself. No one's going to tell you what to do anymore. No one's going to cover for you anymore. And in many ways, you're not responsible to the team anymore, but just to yourself now. So there's a sense of loneliness, of fear, but also guilt and self-pity a bit. The guilt is in having to leave your buddies and to leave the mission. For a long time, I really considered going back in. I talked to a lot of my Army buddies who experienced the same feelings. Transitioning from military to civilian was somewhat difficult. It was a very lonely process. My family and hometown friends could not relate and didn't understand, while my Army buddies were either still active or had already transitioned. Transitioning into the military was very challenging, and many people don't make it through basic training. However, you have a team that's transitioning with you. It's a group effort. Your family and friends are back home rooting for you. Transitioning back to civilian may not be as challenging physically, but there are still mental and emotional challenges to overcome, and you do it alone. There's not a lot of support or awareness of the challenges. There's no drill instructor barking orders at you, which is good and bad. There's a security to having a chain of command, of having a uniform and a schedule set for you. All you have to do is follow the orders. There's comfort with the military lifestyle that's immediately gone. And there's no one home that can really relate, and there's no one there to support you. It's a very lonely experience. I also want to add that I know many people, other veterans, that have it much worse than I did. So I don't want to misconstrue that I am complaining. I feel very honored to have had the opportunity to serve, and I feel lucky that the transition back to civilian was fairly smooth for me. But I do believe that there are some things that can be done to make the process easier, especially for the vets that need it. Just consider that transitioning into the military includes weeks of training, support, and resources.
Why do I want to work for the federal service? I'm a servant. Growing up and starting my military career at 17 years young, and knowing then that I was contributing to our society, contributing to our country, that was put in my heart, that was embedded in me at that time. So upon exiting the military, I wanted to continue my service to others. There's so much that's required of us to give back to our communities, to our environment, to our country. And so this, working with the federal government, affords me that opportunity to help someone that's less fortunate, to continue to build on what I started from the very beginning, which was serving others.
Why would you like to work for the federal government? I asked myself that question as I was transitioning from the military to the government, and I found that the bottom line is service. Whether we're in military service or civilian service, I found that over the last 14 years that I've been in civilian service, that there are lots of different ways to serve. When I was young in the military, I found that it was very hands-on. Later on, it was in leadership. After that, and when I started to work with NATO, with other governments and things, I found that there was a lot more of a team effort. But what it really boiled down to is service. And when I got out of the military, it wasn't always easy, but I think that the main reason for transitioning from the military to the government is the continuation of service. I had served with the Department of the Army for 14 years after the military, retiring from the Air Force. And I found that working with the Army was really a great experience. Yet now I have a chance to work in the government with HUD, providing IT security. And it's very interesting to see how the service in the government across the different agencies is very interesting. So as we transition, we may not necessarily stay with the service that we had retired from or provided service in, but we may be able to branch out and grow, develop, and serve in different ways.